Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Lawrence Michael, Operations Manager for Air Quality Remediation, making another first day remediation video for you. Those of you that have watched our previous 50 some videos know that the process we go through is to first show the containment door. So this is an apartment complex that we're working on that had a hot water heater in the apartment above leak for an extended period of time. The tenants, moved out for other reasons. The maintenance crew finally had a chance to bring us in and do the remediation. As you'll see inside, there's some other work going on. So as always, our first thing, containment door. So we isolate the affected area from the unaffected area. In this case, the affected area being this apartment versus the unaffected area of the hallway and the rest of the building. As always, our caution tape, warning signage, authorized personnel only, and the authorized personnel only that comes in has to wear the required PPE. So let's go inside and take a look. Now that we're inside the apartment, we can see what's kind of going on here. So it's a small apartment, got a kitchen here, washer dryer. This is where the hot water heater was. Now again, this apartment wasn't the one that was leaking, it was the apartment above, but for those of you that know apartments, whether you're a property management company, renter, tenant, landlord, you know that most of the times everything's kind of cookie cutter. So the hot water heater in this apartment is directly under the hot water heater in the next apartment, which is directly under the hot water heater in the apartment above. So when one leaks down, it normally affects a couple apartments below. So in this case, the property management maintenance team has already replaced the subflooring and the flooring that was underneath the hot water heater. But you can see we still have some baseboards that have some mold affected areas, some trim, some mold on some drywall here. And then we also have some mold in a shower, as well as on all of the vents throughout the apartment. So you can see all this mold growth that's on all the drywall. It's around every vent throughout the apartment. Here's another example of substantial mold growth around the vent. We also have this main return, which has substantial mold growth in it as well. As well as some baseboards here. Definitely on the countertops. Going into the bedroom. Same thing. Mold growth around more vents. Same thing. Mold growth around more vents. Definitely substantial. And then the air conditioning unit right here in the closet. So our scope of work for this project is to do a mold remediation. So we're going to, as always, build our containment, set up negative air pressure with these HEPA air scrubbers, and then we'll cut out the mold affected drywall in all these different areas. Then we'll have to decontaminate the apartment, so HEPA vacuum and sanitize all items and all surfaces with an EPA's approved disinfectant. Then we'll have to clean the actual air conditioning unit and all the ductwork because it's likely that they are contaminated as well. So we'll go through with a HEPA collector and a whip system and a fogger with an EPA's approved disinfectant, an antimicrobial solution to clean the ductwork and the air conditioning unit throughout the apartment, as well as all the vents, which are sitting over here. We didn't take these off, but they were just sitting here, and you can see that they have mold growth on them as well, which is understandable and pretty common and expected in this situation. And then we'll go through and decontaminate the entire apartment. So HEPA vacuum and sanitize everything, all items, all surfaces, from the roof to the walls to the floor, from back to front, all the way back to the door. Now in this case, we did a pre and post remediation. Well, we did a pre-remediation. We'll do the remediation process, and then we'll do a post-remediation air sample test. So I just completed the pre-remediation air sample test before we do any work. So a air sample test, I get asked a lot, we want air sample testing done. We certainly can do air sample testing. However, it's not a free service. We do offer free visual assessments of properties. If a air sample test is required, we certainly can do it. It's just not a free service that we offer like the visual assessment. So in this case, we did a pre-remediation air sample test. In a nutshell, that is an air pump here that we calibrate before we use it on any sample. It gets calibrated to 15 liters of air per minute, and each sample is a 5-minute sample, so that equates to 75 liters of air per sample. We do a sample in the living room, we did a sample in the bedroom, and we did a sample out in the hallway. Now normally we do an outside sample, so a sample outside the building, and that's used as our control sample. Obviously we can't control the outside air, so we compare the results from the inside samples to the outside samples. The problem is today it's raining, and when it rains it won't give you an accurate reading because the mold spores that may be in the air all the time like normal are on the ground. They're stuck because they're wet. They can't be collected inside an air sample cassette. This is what an air sample cassette looks like. So in this case we did a sample in the living room, the bedroom, and then a hallway. So the hallway sample is going to be our control in this situation. Then I'll mark that down on our chain of custody form. When we do an air sample test, we calibrate the pump to the 15 liters of air per minute, so it's a 75 liter sample. We connect this air sample cassette to the air pump, and we turn the pump on and allow it to run for 5 minutes. This cassette has a little filter inside, so as the air is flowing through the cassette, these filters capture particulates and spores and particles. Then we seal the samples up, so this top and bottom seal is now sealed. We'll put it in a Ziploc bag with a chain of custody form. This is a chain of custody form. I have the top part of the form covered up with a drawing that I made, and I'll go over that in a second. But I did cover it up because it does have customer information on it. So I can show you a little bit of what a chain of custody form looks like. The only thing above here is client information, so address, phone number, things like that. So it is a week turnaround time. We can see the week is X'd out. You can select how quickly you want the turnaround time to be. If you need the results back quickly, you can select, a 1 day or 2 day or 3 day turnaround time. We normally do a week. So once the samples are received by the third-party independent company who's going to do the analysis of the samples, they have a week to get us the results. It's an M001 aerosol cassette. So then samples, the sample location, the type of sample and the test code for it, that's 75 liters of air, the date and time it was collected, so 12:57 to 1:02, that's the 5-minute sample. It was collected today, I just did it. The number of samples and what day we sent it to the third-party independent company, and then my signature saying that I collected these samples and I filled out the chain of custody form. So once the samples are completed, chain of custody form is completed, we put both the samples and the chain of custody form inside a Ziploc bag. It goes inside a bubble wrap envelope, and then we ship it off to the third-party independent company via UPS with a tracking number so we can see when it gets there and make sure it doesn't get lost. Then in a week's turnaround time, the third-party independent company will send us the results back, and then we can evaluate those results and compare the pre-remediation air sample test results to post-remediation air sample test results to show that the number of spores in the post-remediation has dropped significantly from the pre-remediation, as well as compare the inside samples, in this case the living room and the bedroom, to the hallway samples, the control, compared to the post-remediation bedroom and living room to the hallway control. So it is a lot of evaluation as well as visual assessments. It is a totality of everything. It's not as simple as, well, we'll do an air sample test and we'll see, whether there's a safe number or not, because OSHA and the EPA doesn't have a permissible exposure limit for mold. There is no PEL for mold, just like lead or asbestos or silica dust. So that kind of covers air sample testing and a quick rundown of how we do air sample testing and how the results get submitted. And after the job's done and we do our final walkthrough of the job, maybe I'll make a video showing the actual air sample test being conducted, so that way you guys can see how it's actually done instead of me just talking and explaining it. But another thing I like to do on top of the chain of custody for the air sample test is I'll make a drawing of the actual property. So in this case, living room, bedroom, closet, bathroom. So this is all inside the apartment, and then the hallway. And I'll use a particle counter to count how many particles are in each space. So these air sample tests, they show, how many of each type of spore was collected, and then the particle counter will tell me just how many particles are in the air in each individual area. And we'll also do that for a pre and post. So not only when we're done the remediation do we have the numerical value of how many spores were collected in the pre and post, we'll also have actual particle counts in the pre and post. So in this case, 0.3 microns in the living room was 51,000. In the bedroom, the 0.3 microns was 28,000, and in the hallway it was 470,000 0.3 microns. So there was a lot more particles in the hallway than there was in the actual apartment, most likely because of foot traffic, people walking in and out, carrying things, coming from their car, things like that. So, but it does give me another document to submit showing that the amount of particles inside the apartment area after our remediation is done has significantly dropped, and that is because of these air scrubbers that are in the apartment. This is a HEPA air scrubber, just like we use on all of our remediation and restoration projects. HEPA is high efficiency particle air, as we've talked about before. It gets 99.97% of the particles out of the air down to 0.3 microns. So while we're working, we'll have this air scrubber running. We also have another one in the bedroom. We'll walk over there in a second. That's what gets ducted outside to create the negative air pressure in this space, so that way we don't cross-contaminate the hallway or any other apartment in the building. But these air scrubbers have HEPA filters in them, and that's what's filtering out the particles and the spores out of the air while we're working and after we're done working. So that way when we do our post-remediation air sample test and our post-particle count readings, the numbers will be significantly reduced, not only because we're actually removing the mold spores that are on the drywall and baseboards and things like that and inside the ductwork, but the air scrubbers are also filtering those spores and particles out of the air. So as always, if anybody has any questions, I know I kind of went on a rant there. Like I said, I'll make a post-remediation video as I always do, but I'll make the video when I'm doing the post-remediation air sample test, so that way you guys can actually see how it's done instead of me just talking about it. But as always, I appreciate everybody watching. Thank you all for your support, your comments, your likes. It really helps the Google algorithms and the YouTube algorithms, keep us towards the top of the search engine optimization. So I appreciate all your time. Thank you all for watching. And if you have any questions, as always, reach out to us on any of our social media platforms and look us up online. We're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if anybody has any indoor air quality concerns, definitely give us a call, and we'll see you on the next video.